Hello, my name is Amar, and I'm going to be talking about bilingual education and why the return to bilingual education will be beneficial to California. So first, I'd like to say that bilingual education does work and that it succeeds in making students more proficient with the English language. Later, I'll also be talking about the way that bilingual education promotes multilingualism and the way that has its own sets of benefits. According to the ASCD, or the Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development, most bilingual educators would say that they prefer to teach their students math because there's more numbers involved and they don't have to deal with English as much. But especially now with Common Core, there's a lot more English involved, and unfortunately the language of mathematics is often too difficult for students to understand. So consider the following elementary algebra problem. Find a number such that 5 less than the number is equal to twice the number minus 21. Although the solution to the problem is straightforward once you have the equation, there are linguistic skills required that English learners might not have. For example, they have to know that a number and the number, which is repeated twice, refer to the same number. And the way that it's worded, they might be tempted to write 5 minus n when it should be n minus 5. And the phrase 5 less than the number is syntactically confusing. Now, all of this having been said, David Nieto, in his book, A Brief History of Bilingual Education in the United States, provides research conducted by J.P. Green that shows that students in a bilingual education curriculum do perform better in standardized tests when they're compared to students who are in an English-only curriculum. Similarly, Stephen May provides research in his bilingual education, what the research tells us. And his research shows that the greatest growth in mathematics, English language skills, and English reading was among students in late exit bilingual programs where students had been taught predominantly in Spanish compared to those who were transferred early into an all-English curriculum. So this shows that bilingual education programs can teach their students everything that they need to, and that they can get a full grasp of all of the things that they have to understand, despite not being able to understand some of these things because they don't know the language. And as I said before, bilingual education promotes multilingual speakers. And John White from LinkedIn wrote an article called Benefits of Being Bilingual in Business. And in the article, he talks about the way that you can connect and bond with others more through their native languages. And in the article, he provides a story where he's in a call with a customer, and the call wasn't going very well, but he detected a Spanish accent, so he switched over, and he was able to convince the customer to switch to their company and enter a 2-year business agreement with him. And he stated that the sales cycle usually takes at least 2 meetings, a formal proposal, and weeks, if not months, of negotiation. He also stated that multilingualism makes you more marketable to employers and that it gives you higher pay. While being multilingual does help the individual, it also helps society prosper. And Neil Burton talks about this in his article, Beyond Words, The Benefits of Being Bilingual. He provides a report from the University of Geneva that estimates that Switzerland's multilingual heritage contributes about $50 billion a year to the Swiss economy, as much as 10% of GDP. Conversely, the research provided by the UK government cautions that a lack of language skills could be costing the British economy around $48 billion a year, or 3.5% of GDP in lost output. So to summarize, the return to traditional bilingual education will be beneficial to California because there will be an increase in economic success because it facilitates business interactions, and the students are receiving such a good education that they'll be able to foster economic growth.
All right, I think we fixed those problems that we were talking about the other night. Your proposition's a lot clearer here. I do think that you could use some of that context about how the laws in California were different and that they were recently changed, and then we would know why it is that you have to make this argument and why it's valuable for us to hear what you were saying, because there was some controversy about the approaches to teaching kids in schools using bilingual education. That aside, though, your claim is clearly stated, and there's a good preview of what the structure is going to be. But when we get to the body of the argument, there's no signpost on the first point, so we have to have made sure that we were listening carefully and remember that, and I think you need to remind the audience that's one of the things speakers need to do. Repetition is kind of necessary. If we're reading along something, we can go back and check and make sure that we're in this right spot. Audiences, though, who are listening, they need a few more signposts along the way. And I thought when you got to your second point, I could hear the claim that you're presenting. Again, I do think you want to highlight it a little bit with maybe a numerical signpost, or simply say, the second or another argument that I was making. Remember in my preview, I said there was another thing that I was going to talk about. Here we are at that point where we're talking about it, and I think that would help the structure a little bit. There's good information that's being cited in the presentation. I thought you did a good job providing us with the qualifications and the sources that you're presenting on these points. I'm not sure that there's a lot of controversy about the benefits of having multilingual skills. The notion that multilingualism would be helped by providing bilingual education for English language acquirers in California schools, for instance, I think you need a little bit more information on that to make that link. But the value of a multilingual background, I think, is easily demonstrated, and I thought you had some good information on that. The process that bilingual education gets us to that is mostly assumed, and I think that that's a little bit problematic. But the advantages of bilingual education for acquisition of other academic materials, I thought was demonstrated pretty well in that first point. There's a pretty good summary of the argument at the end as well. Thank you.